How's it going, everyone? It's Ronin, and today we're going to try and learn a thing or two about the mastering stage of a song. And for those who are not really sure what that means, it's essentially getting your song radio ready. In doing that, you're going to enhance the audio, you're going to kind of final check it, and just make sure it's as high of a quality as you can get it. Alright, there are a few things though you want to keep in mind before you can even jump into mastering. The first, I would say, look at your genre. If you can loosely describe the genre of your song, that can help you establish what you're doing in your mastering. So what I mean by this is if you have an electro house song versus a rock song per se, you might want to keep more sub-bass in an electro house song just because of the nature of the track versus a rock song. So just some subtle things, but just think about that. A second thing to keep in mind is headroom. You really want to make sure that you have room to play with in terms of volume when you're mastering, because when you start layering plugins onto the track, it's going to really quickly add up and you'll notice a volume increase. And if you don't have any headroom to play with, then you're not going to be able to master because it's just going to cause mass distortion. So what I usually do is bounce out my track around -6 decibels below 0. You can go even more if you want. That's just the minimum. I would always try and keep it at that. A third thing to note is that if your mixdown is messy to begin with, mastering is not going to correct that. You're only going to make your mess messier. So if you're running into that problem where you're mastering and it's just you can't get it to sound right and you're getting distortion or something to that effect, try going back to your mixdown, because I guarantee that'll be where you'll find the problem. Mastering is there to polish your audio, okay? Alright, so with those in mind, let's jump into it. Here's my remix of Martin Solveig's The Night Out, and I'm just going to go into it. We're going to play just a little bit of the audio so you can hear what it sounds like before mastering. So this is the mixdown. So it's pretty soft, but that's because it's the mixdown and I've left a lot of headroom. Now let's open up the mastered file and you'll be able to instantly see the difference between a mastered file and one that's been mixed down. Yeah, so it's almost like a brick, but you don't really want it to be so much of a brick. You need some dynamics in there. So we're just going to take a listen to this one too and just think about it and compare them really quick. Right, the master track is obviously a lot more in your face, stereo enhanced, just a lot louder, yeah? So that's what we're going for. Let's just look at a few guidelines to doing this. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and it varies so much from track to track. I'm just going to give you the plugins that I frequently use to accomplish this kind of mastered sound. The first thing I start with is an EQ. With the EQ, we want to be very subtle, not too drastic. We're not looking to boost or drop the volume significantly. You need to just go through your track, kind of listen to it over and over and over, and just pick out what you think needs to be boosted or dropped. You shouldn't have to go too extreme. If you are finding yourself dropping or raising way too much, then that's probably a problem with your mixdown. So with the EQ, try not to be so visually dependent upon it. Try and just use your ears and let them tell you what's wrong, which might sound a little crazy, but it works. If you really listen to your track over and over, you'll eventually hear what you need to put down or up. So I would give that a shot with it. Just subtle boosts, subtle dips. So after the EQ, there is one thing that I tend to do pretty regularly with the majority of my tracks. I will use what is called an exciter, and essentially what an exciter is doing is really just brightening up your track. It's going to boost the higher ends a little bit. Doing that allows your track to sound much more crisp, and it just gets really clean sounding. And you'll notice it too. So just listen through your track and keep turning it on and off. You're gonna hear a huge difference, I guarantee it. It's very basic stuff with the exciters, so you can put that on. There's tons of free ones online. Look around for them. Some software have them. I think Logic has an exciter. Try putting it on your track, and I guarantee you'll hear a difference. After that, I will sometimes use a stereo expander if I feel the track needs it, and they essentially give that full, rich sound that you're looking for. So instead of it being so centered, it's gonna spread out your audio and give you that really nice stereo spread feel. That should help, really get your track to breathe. It's kind of like panning everything in a weird way. So that's another thing you can try out. Fourth thing I usually do is multiband dynamics, or a multiband compressor. Multiband compression, you're essentially dealing with a compressor but within different frequency ranges. So you have like a low, a mid, and a high on like this Ableton multiband compressor here. So it works just like a regular compressor. You have your attack, your release, and your gain, and it's compressing certain frequency bands. So if you feel that the bass is coming in way too hot and it's just dipping and then all of a sudden exploding, you can compress just the lower frequencies. So you could maybe take your attack, if that was happening, and really lower it, and then set the release a little bit higher, and just have it really hold out on that lower end. And just apply that to anywhere you feel it needs to be done in the track. So a multi-band compressor is a very good idea in mastering. So the last step I usually do in my mastering is using a limiter. And what a limiter is going to do for you is essentially give you that loudness that everyone's looking for in mastering. So this is what's going to take everything that you've done and just put it up to the standard volume. I happen to be using an ultra maximizer, so this is going to really boost it up, but any limiter will work. But get it to where it's at its prime loudness, and then just keeping your out ceiling a little bit below zero helps to add a safety net for you. Okay? So that's the limiter. One last thing I can suggest that doesn't involve the computer whatsoever is actually moving your body around the sound. So stepping away from the studio monitors, maybe moving to the back of your room, is a really good idea to check, and it can maybe help you hear what you've missed, or really help open up the track and see what you need to do to it. Also, in saying that, try listening to your final mastered track everywhere you can. I'm talking your car, your iPod, good headphones, crappy headphones, laptop speakers, studio monitors, everything. The more places you can listen to your track, the better. Because if you can make your track sound the same through all those, then you've done a solid job mastering. What I usually go by is if I can get it to sound good through my laptop speakers, I'm set. So that's a really good thing to do at the end of your mastering. And you also might want to compare it to a already commercially released track, something that's like on the radio or whatever genre you're trying to master. Try comparing it to another similar song. That'll help you hear the differences. And that's a really good way to learn in mastering. Now, I went through this very quickly. It takes time to master. It really does. And practice makes perfect with it. And that's really the key, is just keep trying it. And you'll eventually find what works for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it really helped. And have fun with it, okay?